Well, Danya, he's a bit of a wildcat. I mean, that's not to say he can't play positionally, because of course every grandmaster who reaches this level can play. But I think he certainly prefers positions which are a bit more muddy, a bit more unclear, where he can fight for the initiative. And Anish, well, Anish said it in his interview yesterday. He's probably the player that takes the least risks of everybody in this field. He is really risk averse. Plays very solid, simple chess, as he called it, but he's very, very hard to beat. Almost impossible to beat, actually, if he really doesn't want to lose. But we have something already a little bit more exciting than I had envisaged. Anish with the move c4 here. I don't know. Well, this is definitely in his notes. We have an interesting version of a Caro-Kann, very new age idea of 3d3. You didn't see this move 10 years ago. It just didn't exist as an opening
2 years ago,
or
I think.
even 2 years ago. So some new opening theory in this line, and we'll see what Danya comes up with.
Yeah, Jovanka, you're the resident Caro-Kann expert.
Yeah.
What do you think of this variation?
Yeah, I think Black is actually doing OK here. I mean, the main thing I would say is, after White's third move, do not be tempted to go into an endgame. That's the only thing. Anything else goes.
Yeah.
Just
Let's just show this. So any Caro-Kann aficionados at home, do not play pawn takes pawn in this opening. Jovanka, why not? It looks like you can trade off the queens. White loses the right to castle.
Yeah, I know. It's just very pleasant for White. And yeah, OK, Black probably is OK, but it's not worth it. Just don't do it. Much simpler to keep the queens on the board and just play it in the style of Naroditsky.
Yeah. The two moves to keep the queens on the board, or three moves. One, you can bring your bishop out. Very tense middle game there. You can push this pawn, very sensible, but Naroditsky moved his queen. The idea was to push forward with his pawn in the centre. And yeah, as we saw in the game, a trade of pawns. White pushing forward, trying to make use of a small development advantage by opening the centre. And this position, I'm surprised that Anish is thinking here. This is still very logical stuff, at least. As far as I remember, the white bishop normally wants to go to this square. I'm not sure whether you kind of push a pawn to put it there yet. I guess you could also make an argument for just moving the bishop out, getting the white king castled, and then deciding. But yeah, interesting opening. Not the most orthodox. Have there been many games here before?
Not so many, but I mean, they've been very high level. I mean, we have a game between Alan Pitcher against Magnus Carlsen, Alan Pitcher again against David Anton, Rasmus Svahn has played this with Black. So we're talking about very, very serious grandmasters here. And I would say that the scores are in Black's favour.
Black's favour. Wow, interesting. And it's rare for any opening to be in Black's favour in general, but I guess here Black's moves are very natural. Black just wants to bring his bishop out, castle the king. For White, it's less natural, maybe. You have to be a bit creative. What do we think about this punt? Bishop to the g5 square, attacking this knight.
Looks like the most natural move on the board to me, actually, because you want to play a very quick rook c1 in a lot of lines and try to embarrass this queen on c7. And you know, if Black ever plays a move like d takes c4, I think you're very tempted just to ignore it, basically.
Bring the rook out anyway.
Yeah, just play rook c1 immediately.
It's natural, Lawrence, but it's new.
Yeah,
I mean, David highlighted earlier exactly what they were doing. That everyone was kind of putting the bishop on the long diagonal and then attacking the queen. This one, never been seen before. So
OK, so bishop g5 is a completely new move, is it?
Completely new.
OK, I can believe that.
And I guess Black's most logical replies would be to defend this knight, either with his bishop or maybe with the other knight.
I think.
Can I throw an absolutely insane suggestion out there?
Yes,
No,
please,
it's too
Lawrence.
insane.
Always. Never.
It's too insane. I wanted to play the ridiculous move d4. I don't think it quite works.
Attacking this knight, hoping for knight takes pawn, I guess?
Yeah, well, I wanted to make queen e5 check work, but I can't quite.
Check, hitting the bishop, hitting the knight. But I guess I can just retreat.
Yeah, bishop e3 and now some bishop c5, but you have knight f3. It's total nonsense.
Yeah, but But it's interesting because, OK, not exactly here, but in some situations, that type of tactic might work. It's always nice to look for the threats, right? Just in case your opponent's blundered something. But yeah, it feels like, to me at least, I would want to make this move work. The bishop to this square, just so I can castle as quickly as possible.
I think that's the most natural move, and I think it does work, right?
I think so.
Because after pawn takes pawn, you can actually... Ooh.
OK, if pawn takes pawn, you could take with a knight in the centre.
Exactly.
And you'd be OK. But Naroditsky, he's happy to mix things up. He doesn't play the passive move that I was advocating. He brings his bishop out to create a pin. And I say mix things up because he's allowing his pawn structure to be compromised, to be split. Doubled pawns, the black king's going to think twice now, maybe before castling on this side. But on the bright side, there's some tactics here now with the pin. Maybe you use this file for a rook later, this newly open G file. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it, David.
Yeah, I guess it's not in a Caro-Kann player's nature to allow...
it's like preserve the pawn structure. Don't... I mean... Oh my God, my instinct is, you know, first of all, queen jack.
Queen check?
Queen jack, yeah, and
check,
then...
hitting the bishop, so
yes.
that has to block and defend.
Yeah, and then initiate the trades.
So take, and now you can, for example, take on this square.
Yeah, that's it.
Has to recapture, and suddenly, ugh. All the isolated pawns.
I know, Black gets like some active pieces in compensation, but I don't know.
But I guess Naroditsky, if we think about his tournament situation, he's on 13, Anish is on 17. There's no one in between. He needs to win this game, right?
Yeah.
If Naroditsky draws, he'll be 4 points behind Anish with 3 games remaining. That's not a realistic comeback, right?
No.
Naroditsky, if he doesn't win this one, he'll have to win pretty much all of his games tomorrow in order to qualify. So a position like this with kind of, weird pawn structure, at least it will confuse Anish. Anish doesn't like kind of facing dynamic play. Black's bishop is now very quick to come out. Black's rook gets an open file if white wants to castle on this side. It gets really complicated.
Yeah. And Lawrence, you said that his style was just wild. So this is the kind of position that favours him.
I think Daniel's going to be very, very happy with this position as Black, to be honest. It's messy, it's new, it's exactly the sort of thing Anish doesn't really excel in. Of course, he's a fantastic tactician and he's a great player, but you know, it's not exactly what he wants, I think, which is curious because he didn't have to play this way with white. Of course, he played 1e4, which is already a minor surprise, I would say, from Anish. But
he's got a chessable course out on 1e4.
He does. He does have a chessable course on 1e4.
But yeah, I mean, Naroditsky, his repertoire is a bit kind of... OK, he plays some solid stuff occasionally, but it's a bit random, so maybe Anish was trying to target the Caro-Kann. A lot of players do that nowadays. They can, if they know that what their opponent's going to play, whatever opening it is, they can target their opponent's kind of weak spots or perceived weak spots. Naroditsky, I think he's done quite well out to the opening, though, even if he is slightly freestyling.
Yeah. And whilst Anish is pausing for thought, we have a question from João Campello Ribeiro, who asks us, apparently...
I'm his coach. I'm his coach.
Hi, Coach
Hi,
Trent. Do you believe Magnus is under extra pressure, especially against younger players, since the Niemann incident, since Hans is also a teen?
I don't think those incidents are... those things are actually that related. I think the younger generation is always the threat to the older generation. I'm including Magnus in that older generation. He is over 10 years old. He's 10 years older or more than Gukesh, Abdusaturov, and so on.
It's the third oldest player in the tournament, actually, Magnus Carlsen.
He's the third oldest in the tournament. So, but I don't think the Niemann incident actually has got anything really to do with age per se. I think those things are isolated, but for sure he feels the pressure from the younger generation, but he also uses it as his source of motivation. After all, he's been playing the same guys year in, year out for 10 years, and he wants some fresh blood, and he gets excited. You know, I speak to him, I hang out with him, and he tells me that he looks forward to seeing the progression of these young guns.
Do you think when it is Furusha or, you know, Gukesh or Abdusatorov, when they qualify for the World Championship match, do you think Magnus will make a comeback and play in the candidates?
Really tough to say, because the cycles are quite long as well, right? So even, let's say, Abdusatorov was to win a candidates in 2 years from now, and then he challenged, that's another 4 years, and then Magnus would have to re-challenge, and already Magnus is getting close to 40 by that stage. Is he really? Yeah, there we go. That's the reality of it. Does he want to get back in the mix? Who knows? What do you think? I mean, I have a feeling that he's kind of done now. If Hans Niemann becomes world champion, that'll add an interest. That'll add a little bit of spice to the situation.
I like the quote that he came up with yesterday.
Which one?
Quite nice. Said, "I'm just an improving player on the road to the world on the road to becoming world champion or something."
Hans Niemann.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's confident.
Yeah, but you know, this is the thing. Most chess players are confident, but he's like, Hans is probably like the first one to come out and go, yeah, I'm just playing great.
Yeah.
Wonderful chess. It speaks for itself.
It is next level confidence, yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, it's just the circle of life, right? I mean, if we look back in chess history, I mean, Boris Spassky was the world champion. Fischer, a younger rival, came up and took his crown. And then later on, Karpov was world champion. A younger rival, Kasparov, took his crown. It's always 10, 15 years difference between the players. And Magnus took the crown from Vishy Anand, who was, about 20 years older than him. And it's always just... Kramnik took it from Kasparov, who was like 10, 15 years older than him. It's always the next generation. It's very rare for someone of the same generation to take the crown from a rival. It's always people who see chess differently, who kind of have a new, different brand of chess, who come and take over eventually. And meanwhile, this game is changing slightly. The queen's off the board. What do we think about that?
I think it favours white, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, these weak pawns that black have, I mean, that's going to be a liability in the endgame. The thing is, if you're playing with the white pieces, then you have to neutralise the bishop pair.
Yep. And black does have that to at least try and enjoy the bishop pair. The black dark squared bishop has decent potential, I feel. The black light squared bishop might just have to do a defensive job. Are we surprised that Naroditsky took the queens off, just considering we think he's in a must-win situation? Is that something that's on his mind, or is he just trying to play the position, maybe, rather than worry about results?
Yeah, I was surprised by some of his choices. I thought he could have kept the queens on and just tried to pressure the white king a little bit. But I think maybe it was a bit too risky, too double-edged, and he didn't feel it was worth the risk.
You got to risk sometimes, especially if Naroditsky doesn't win this game now, and he doesn't really have much chance going into tomorrow to qualify for the knockouts. Then he might look back at the queen exchange as maybe not the most ambitious decision. That being said, I still quite like black's chances. Naroditsky talking to himself there, motivating himself.
I wonder if when he talks to himself, he puts on the accents.
The impressions.
The impressions, right, yeah.
What would Gary say?
What would Gary say? And he would do his accents too. This is a surprising trade.
I mean, you were talking, David, about how great the dark square bishop was. And,
well, at least it had no rival, right?
Yeah.
Bishop pair is always much stronger than a lone bishop. I quite like white's pawn structure now as well. White's isolated pawn in the centre is no longer. I mean, white has a couple of pawns on the D and C files. White's A pawn is fine for now.
I don't understand anything Danyo's done in this past 5 moves. I mean, this is insanity to me. Positional suicide. I mean, you could have played bishop e6 instead of taking on c3.
Let's show this, yeah. I mean, this is the most logical move in the whole position. Defend. You can take this one later if you really need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, very strange. I mean, here as well, you can even just park your king in the centre at some point and just sit and wait, and it's rock solid. But now, bishop takes, and... OK, Anish, he's playing the move I was going to suggest as well. If white can just kind of put the king in the centre, these pawns are safe forever, and eventually you can go about trying to attack these guys. Maybe reroute the white knight. I would love to kind of move the white knight and put it 1 square forward. Takes a while to get there, but...
And if you trade off the bishops, the king is going to be the big attacker.
Yeah. I mean, the king has a clear path if the rooks disappear, for example, into some decent squares. Black has one isolated pawn, two isolated pawns, and a set of double pawns. White has only one weakness. It's always better to have fewer pawn islands, and here white has one. This is a pawn island. These two in the center are a pawn island. They can defend each other, and this is another pawn island on the king side. Black, meanwhile, has 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's a lot, and a lot of weaknesses to watch out for later.
Quick maths.
Quick counting. I can count to 4, yes. That's what you need to be a grandmaster.
I was quoting that song. I love that. Who does it? Quick maths. 1 plus 1 is 2.
Oh, I don't know that
Quick
song.
maths.
No?
It's like a parody.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
It's a parody of these rappers in hoodies.
Oh, right, okay.
And he's like, he won't take his jacket off. It's very good.
I'll have to check it out. I don't know it.
Twitter followers, our Twitter viewers must...
Yeah,
let us
Man's
know
Not
what song
Hot.
it is.
That's what it's called.
Man's
It's about
Not
a,
Hot.
it's about a rapper that does not take off his puffer jacket.
Okay.
It's like, no, Man's Not Hot.
Well, Magnus Carlsen's been playing with a hoodie. It's off today, and he is right now playing against Nils Grandelius. He's had a tough day, Magnus Carlsen, and the bar is over to Nils' side in that game. Maybe struggling a little bit in that one, Magnus. I don't know. And I'm also noticing Aditya Mittal, the youngest player and international master. The bar is definitely over to his side in his game against Arjun Erigaisi. Maybe we will have some interesting results in this round 12.
Yeah, I took a look at those games that you just mentioned, Kaya. Both of them crazy.
Wow.
Especially Aditya Mittal. He's doing very well in that
Nice.
game. So still some shake-up on the standings, potentially.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Black has doubled up rooks on the c-file. Makes some sense, and Anish guarding everything. Let's talk about Anish. Do we think he's going to finish this one off? It is his type of position in general, as we said yesterday.
Yes. I mean, even though I've not liked the way Danya has played, his position is still acceptable. But...
I wouldn't say fun, though.
Not fun, yeah. But what is the plan here for White? That's a really good question.
So we think Black is just going to sit tight and kind of wait?
Yeah, I think you have to sit tight. What else can you do here?
That's a good question. I'm slightly surprised by this move from Anish.
That was
Why
my
is he
first.
retreating his bishop.
That was my first move.
Ooh, what's the deep idea behind
I don't think there is, but there are some interesting ideas. For example, if Black plays bishop g4 here, knight d4 might be a cute little idea. The point being, if bishop takes d1, knight b5 check exists.
So we're even in an endgame, we're playing for tricks.
Yeah, and
This looks like it's going to swap off pieces, but knight to d4. And like you said, attacking the bishop. If bishop takes, we can flick in a check with this knight.
yeah,
And we just win material, right?
yeah, this is just winning.
We take the black rook, and only then do we take the black bishop later. And if you take the knight first, then we take the bishop first, hitting
Yeah.
the rook and hitting the knight.
And after knight e6,
Yeah.
this has got to have been a very... Now a5, for example,
Yeah.
is the move you
Push
play.
forward. This is White's dream, to trade off the isolated pawn for these two strong ones, right?
Correct.
Okay, so he's gone on an adventure with his knight to the edge of the board, hitting the bishop.
Bishop is just probably going to step back to the square it came from.
Yeah, and there we go, you're right.
And
This helps White, right? I always thought the idea was to get White's knight to this square, and he's
Yep.
going back? No, Anish, don't repeat
No.
it's happening.
What? What? White is better.
Such a weird...
White has an advantage, and he just bails out with a draw. Repeats
What
the
is
position.
that about?
Is that over? Is that confirmed?
He
Yeah.
dropped back his knight, Black moved his bishop, he moved his knight, the bishop went back, and they repeated this dance.
Shocking.
Objectively, he knows he was better. I think he's just playing on the tournament standings. Anish